Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Good evening, Manitoba Major Junior Hockey fans, into not the premiere of Season 3, but as we make the change here, as stuff loads, but we are here for Episode 2 tonight of Season 3 of the mmjhl podcast, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, a new sponsor in movement, fitness, and performance, and another returning sponsor in Terrico. Thank you to them for continuing to support our coverage here of the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League and everything else we do. By the way, be sure to, if you haven't already, and you were interested in doing so, we've linked the description or the link in the description down below to Carter Rush Wilson's GoFundMe fundraiser, and yeah, that's to raise money for the Wilson family to help pay for some expenses during this very tough time, or to pay for the expenses during this tough time. That money will all go towards a wonderful cause, so be sure to check it out today. Carter Wilson, Victoria's defenseman, unfortunately losing his battle to cancer this summer at only the age of 19. Any type of support helps, any money helps, and if you can't donate, be sure to share it out to as many people as possible, your loved ones, friends, anyone else that you may be thinking of. But in terms of what's on tap tonight, we're going to be joined by a championship general manager and assistant coach in Tyler Moore of the St. Boniface Riels. We're going to also update you on what's been happening from around the league in unpredictable, unfortunate situation for the Transcon Railer Express preseason tournament that we'll get into very shortly here as well. But yeah, to just let you all know once again, our game day broadcast will be pay-per-view this year. League plans and all access plans are available on gshowproductions.uscreen.io, your new home for game day this season. Be sure to check out the mmjhl plan. A lot of content going to be coming your way in that one. And for us, our first big event of the year, not happening in the mmjhl, but happening in female hockey. We're going to be in Portugal Prairie coming up this Friday until Sunday, broadcasting 14 games in this year's Central Plains Capital Showcase. If anyone's interested in watching this, some high-level female hockey as they go into a final tune-up before their regular season starts pretty shortly here, be sure to check it out. Going to be a lot of fun as we get that party started Friday morning in Portugal Prairie for ourselves. But as for this league, the mmjhl and this podcast, Tyler Moore, general manager and assistant coach of the St. Boniface Riels, joins me to talk about last season a bit, the championship run, building that championship team, as well as going into talking about this upcoming season, the training camp, how things have been so far. At the time I interviewed Tyler, which was last week, they had just finished recently their first skates, so it was nice to chat to him about that and some other great stuff on tonight's edition of the mmjhl podcast with the lone guest, Tyler Moore of the St. Boniface Riels. General manager and assistant coach of the defending champion St. Boniface Riels, joining this edition of the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast. Tyler, it's been about 5 months since, just under that, since this team won it all back in April in East End. Take me back to that moment, the journey to that, all that build up, but specifically the moment when this team was able to complete that goal of bringing home a championship once again.
Yeah, it was quite a lot of fun. I'll start with that. We preach to the kids, and even as a staff, we do this because we enjoy it, and it's fun getting together with a bunch of like-minded teammates, friends, and in essence, coworkers, and succeed. So we had a lot of fun. It was very tough, many tough series, despite maybe 12-1. If you look at the games, there was a lot of tight games. Vicks, a lot of tight games, Twins. I mean, I think every game might have been one goal. And then same thing with Transcona, right? There's a couple overtime games to memory. And so despite 12-1, it was a lot closer, I'd say, than that record shows, right? So
For
I think
sure.
that's just a good testament to the, equality of the league. And I think where this league's going, it's getting better every year and year. And yeah, it was, a heck of a ride, but it's, I started camp yesterday, so it's trying to start it all over again if we can.
Oh, no doubt about that. And we'll be getting into just how that first skate of training camp went in a little bit here. But uh, when I had you on, I think the last time we spoke last year, it was after the trade deadline, and we had talked about the moves that this team had made. And you had spoken about how you feel like, and rightfully so, given the roster and the talent that was on that roster, that last year was a part of this group's window to win, and they're able to accomplish that. But yeah, just talk about that journey going into a general manager role and being able to come out of that and thinking, I'm able to do this job pretty darn well, adding guys like Alex Van Dynes, Mike Hepner, and Owen LaRock onto this roster, who, of course, with everyone who watched, knew how big of an impact they made during that run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not to disnote the other ones. Melstead, came in and helped, and there's a couple other additions that we got in. So it's going in, let's just say I'll start with, Franco. He brought me into the Reals, and Jay. I've known Jay for a long time, and Zach Franco as well. So same with Sean Christensen, who was the other coach at the time. So Frank set a good, we'll say, good culture turnaround, I believe. So 2 years ago was my first year. The year prior, I think the Reals, just had not too many wins. So he came in, set a good basis of the team and a good culture. So last year, I picked up from that and just continued to roll and add to it. So I mean, that was kind of my mindset. It definitely helps having a strong staff. So Paul Cassis is a great coach. Sean Christensen is a great coach. Um, the players, seem to respond well to those two, um, which makes the game, much more fun, I believe. Getting along with your coach and understanding and transparency. So it's, definitely a lot of kudos to the staff we have, and to Jay for, trusting me and letting me kind of roll with a plan, if we put it that way, and maneuvering throughout the year. So, I mean, that's kind of how the first year went, and, this year's camp, and it's a bit different, and, we'll do the best we can. And just whether you finish first, second, third, fourth in this league, I think last year we proved that it's,
Yeah.
can you get the guys to buy in when the playoff time comes, right? Can you peak at the right time? And I think that's most important. Um, and there's a lot of learning process throughout the season for the team and for the staff. So it kind of contributes, I think, to that end goal of trying to peak at the right time, and I believe we did. So I think that just has a lot to do with it. Not to turn to this year, but I anticipate there's gonna be a lot of good teams as well, just like there were last year. We finished fourth. We did not finish first, so it was a heck of a playoff run. But the Twins were a great team. Again, the Vicks we played, Transcona, the Raiders did some good things over there. I thought they had a really good team as well, and not discounting the ones I'm not mentioning, right? I know
For sure. Yeah.
the Canucks as well, and everyone. So this year is going to be, I believe, very competitive again, which is great for the league, right? So
Okay.
I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not wrong about that. Another competitive season of hockey last year. And yeah, as dominant as that playoff run looked like on paper, there were some moments of adversity that this Riels team faced. A team that had such a good mix of that experience and some new talent. That run, of course, huge for the players that are set to return this year. But just one last time in that playoff run, I mean, the team starts off game one down 4-0 against Saint Vital, coming back to win that one in overtime, scoring five straight. Came back in every single game against Saint Vital, and it just kind of that motto, that type of blueprint carried on throughout the playoff run in terms of when a team punched, this Riels team would punch back even harder. How crazy was that to see, or how proud, I guess, were you to see that from this group? Like you said, peaking at the right time, seeing that punch back every step of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the credit starts with the players. They're the ones playing the game. I think as coaches, we could sometimes feel like we have more influence on the game than we actually do. And at the end of the day, it's the players who need to, let's say, battle the adversity, right? So the credit for them. Um, the challenge to relate to this year, the challenge will be, getting, we lost a lot of 21s that were, core leaders. So it's a good opportunity for some of our, now 20s and now 21s to step up and follow that same culture of adversity. The other one is, again, to the staff. Paul and Sean do a great job of, we're never out of it, right? 60 minutes to play, we're never out of it. And it comes down to peaking at the right time, to bring it full circle to, excuse me, to what I said before. When you practice that throughout the season and the players practice that and it happens a few times throughout the season, you get that belief. So when playoff time comes, hey, we're down a few goals. I mean, maybe not four would be nice, but if you're down a few goals, we still got 50 minutes or 45 minutes to play or what have you. And, we believe in ourselves and believe in what we can do. So, you're never out of it. And, the guys bought in and they wanted it. The players bought in and they wanted it. And, it's just a great group of kids. And to be honest, I'm feel privileged that I have the opportunity to, coach them and guide them. Last year, of course, and then hopefully, this year again coming down the stretch. So
For sure. And let me tell you, Tyler, at times during that playoff run, it was like watching another champion that recently was crowned, the Florida Panthers, in terms of just that pushback, that punchback was present in every game. And it's what the great teams do, the great champions do, is they're able to get hot at any moment. And this is what this Real squad was able to do last year. 18 returnees set to come back to this year's roster heading into training camp, of course, as already mentioned. First skate was last night. Exhibition schedule is going to be starting soon. How nice does it feel to be back in the rink and to get to see all the talent that came out last night, both returning and the newcomers?
absolutely. We're pretty excited. The kids are excited to be back on the ice. We're excited to see all your buddies. Let the kids, as they always say, see all my buddies. They always say. So it's fun to be able to, privilege again to be able to support that and let these kids have fun with it. In terms of skill wise, yeah, returning a good core of leaders. I'm really excited about them stepping in their second and third years or what have you. And we AP'd a lot of players last year, and so a lot of them got a taste just based on injuries, especially in the playoffs. Like it was an absolute grind. And based on some of the injuries that we had, we had guys step up into playoff games. So, we're very excited to get them back in camp now and, get them as full timers. So, they're excited and it's kind of worked out. They got to meet some of the guys in a playoff run. So it's a bit less newness, I believe, for
Right.
some of them. And it's kind of nice to get the ground running on that and, get over that hurdle of having some new guys maybe try to enter a team. But, we had a good show, good showing last night in terms of numbers. And I thought it was a pretty high paced practice. Um, and again, everyone's, gets so excited that first skate back. So,
Right.
round two tonight here on Wednesday and, see if we can continue that momentum.
For sure. And, ramping up preseason's going to be doing that very soon here as we'll get into exhibition games soon. But as this team has the chance to return a lot of talent, the decor being set, the tandem on paper with Larocque and Alex Dominico being, pretty much set at this point. Two holes to fill up front, but identity of this Riels team, other than the pushback, I'd say watching them, they played with a lot of speed, with a lot of pace. Is that something this team's looking to add on to this season heading in? What's kind of the focus in this approach to this year's training camp?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe every team has their strengths and, even their weaknesses. And so, we want to continue to focus on our strengths and pace is one of those, Graham. So, we have the players that can play with pace. So let's go try and push that as our strength. If we were big, heavy, strong, maybe it would be, a different methodology. Um, but, every team's different. And as we're returning, as you mentioned, 18 and plus some of these APs coming in now full time and some new faces coming in. And, um, we like to push the face and, it's just a lot more fun hockey, isn't it? So the guys enjoy it and that helps as well. So I think that combination is definitely, at least to start, pick up where we left off last year and we'll pivot throughout the year if we need. And if, we see some hiccups, which I guarantee there'll be hiccups. So pivot as we need on, that approach, let's say, Graham, as you mentioned. But, speed, pace, definitely two items or one item there that we are going to focus on, just like resilience, as you mentioned. Two big items, what the culture is of being a St. Boniface Real.
Hey, myself, I'm not complaining if the pace, the speed goes up a bit this year. Absolutely thrilling to watch this team play. Every single game we got to cover them last year, but it's been fun covering this league, getting a chance to talk to many of the faces, different personalities, people who run these teams. And I actually had a chance to speak to Don Gale, who, of course, your teams faced off against each other, his the Railer Express and yours being the Riels in the final. And that was another really young team last season that by making it to the finals, he felt like they were really ahead of schedule. Given this team's age groups on it, and given that they've already brought home a championship, considering taking into account last year, how nice does it feel to be in that position where you too are ahead of schedule, really, in this era with where this group is trying to get?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I believe Transcona runs a good program, and I think Giggs does a good job over there, coaching them. Um, and I believe that reflected on, let's say, that ahead of schedule that they had. And I believe that's partly why for us, Graham, why we were a bit ahead of schedule, as you've mentioned. Paul came in and the kids bought in. What really helped us was our graduated players from last year were great leaders. So they led the way. And that allowed that next generation, as you mentioned, that we kind of planned for to, let's just say, buy in last year, being led by these 21-year-olds to now being able to learn and come forward this year. So, I mean, from my experience, junior teams have windows. And, what we think we're in a bit of one right now is this, Transcona has a great team. They're probably in one. And Charleswood Hawks, another great team. I mentioned them earlier, they're probably in one. So, if you look at the history of the league, you get ebb and flows, right? The Canucks had a great team there for 3 years. They had a great window right there, right? So um, sometimes you're a bit ahead of schedule. You just don't want to be late. Let's just put it that way. So again, we're looking forward to just having some fun this year, but with the group we got, right? So it'll take care of itself, I think, after that.
And we talk about, having that consistency build up and that familiar built up heading into a season, how huge that is. Now that you've had a year under your belt in a situation that you're in, being the GM and both an assistant coach, how would you say, I guess, your mindset is heading into this season compared to last year's?
Yeah, a bit more, I'd say, prepared, at least on the GM side. Uh, I was able to lean on Franco a bit. Some questions early on, which helped me on, and then same with Jay Frickus, who's been in this league forever, from player to coach to you name it. So that definitely helps. I think this year, I have different understandings to start. Where last year I was, kind of drinking out of a fire hose, if you call it. So, that's one different aspect. And on the coach side, again, we have two great coaches right now, and we get a lot of alumni coming back and helping. And so there's a lot of people that want to be around a culture that we're trying to build, and that helps alleviate the lockdown as well, on the ice. Some 22-year-olds or 23-year-olds that played, that some questions that maybe some of the kids could ask too, that they don't want to ask. Some of us, older guys, older coaches. So that helps as well. So again, it's about building culture, and especially in the community, I find. And so we're gonna have a big focus this year on uh, community, culture. We started last year, this year community. So that starts with these alumni coaches. So we've got Hines, Sam Alsip, we have Nielsen,
Awesome.
Connor Davis, Matthew Trott, all these guys helping out, um, which is just tremendous, right? And that starts there, and then maybe trying to now start branching off a bit more into the minor hockey side of, call it our St. Boniface catchment, and getting involved there. So I think in the we're stewards of our communities, and we have to set the culture first and lead the way, which I believe we've built from Franco to ourselves last year. And now this year, just try to take that a step further.
Yeah, and culture, well, as I've come to cover the MMJHL throughout these years, it's one of the most valuable things. St. James had such a strong culture throughout the past 3 years, and throughout the past few years, so has this Riels team. As we've talked about, Franco started it, and more and company, they've carried it on and continued it here. Made the playoffs a few years ago, back in eighth place before last season. Ended up finishing about third place, made to the final four, and then, as we've talked about, ahead of schedule. This group is maybe not, as they just continued that progression and took home the championship for the first time since 2014-15 last season. Tyler Moore, general manager and assistant coach of this defending champion Real squad, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast. Tyler, can't wait to see you and all the rest of the Reals members around the rink this season. Best of luck trying to defend that title.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And Tyler Moore, general manager, assistant coach of the St. Boniface Riels, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast. And for the Riels, of course, as we take a look at preseason schedule, St. Boniface, they'll be back in action coming up on, let's take a look here, on Sunday, against the Fort Garry Twins. 3 games going to be happening this Sunday in the Three games on Friday night. Of course, no games on Saturday. And right now, actually, the St. James Junior Canucks taking on the River East Royal Knights in some preseason action. But as for this past weekend at East End, the traditional preseason tournament, they ended up having to postpone games due to issues with the ice, per the Pembina Valley Twisters Instagram account. So, yeah, unfortunately, the ice not cooperating at Ed Golding, aka East End Arena, this weekend. Those games, I don't believe they'll be rescheduled as preseason moves on. But there was a game that happened before that tournament was supposed to start, and that was the Hawks taking on the Knights on Friday night in Iroquois. The Hawks winning in their home barn. 2 goals for Glavina, 2 goals for Turner, Briggs, Van Alstyne, and Turcotte. Also getting in on the mix in the scoring for the Hawks. They end up being back in action on Friday night, this Friday, on the road at McDonald Arena to take on the St. James Junior Canucks. As for the Riels, some more news from them. Forgot to mention this last week in the premiere of Season 3, but this was pretty cool. In the summertime, Reeves Sukut, as well as Tyler Moore, as you can see there, they ended up competing as a part of Team Manitoba in the U20 Worlds, the ball hockey championships in Poprad, Slovakia. And it was, Reeves Sukut, Tyler Moore, and Jaslyn Sekon a part of that staff. Sekon, trainer on the Riels, but yeah, you can see the celebrations there, repping the Team Canada flag. And yeah, congratulations to these three. I'm not sure if I said Team Manitoba or not, but yeah, it was Team Canada that they were representing. Once again, congrats to Reeve, Tyler, and Jocelyn on representing Team Canada strongly at the U20 Worlds and taking home the gold. And by the way, Reeve Sukut ended up having 5 goals in those 5 games, including one in the final. Used to seeing him step up in the biggest moments as he did last season in the mmjhl. And yeah, Reeve, Tyler, and Jaslyn hoping they can carry over those championship vibes along with the championship experience that, Tyler and, more importantly, Reeve as a player experienced last year. And yeah, that'll only add on to them wanting to bring home another championship to the St. Boniface Riels franchise this year, which, in talking with Tyler Moore in this episode, I know that last week I mentioned it was one of the most dominant runs we've seen, I'd say record-wise, but yeah, Tyler broke it down well. There were a lot of times where that St. Boniface Riels team had to fight back and come back in the playoffs through the first round, especially against St. Vital. Close games against Fort Garry, and yeah, St. Boniface, by the time they got to the finals, met up against a really good, really well-coached Transcona Railer Express team. And in that first game, both sides traded goals. Close games in the finals for the most part, but there were just a few games. And in that last one where St. Boniface was just able to take over and turn the tide many times during this postseason. Can't wait to have a full breakdown on them, as well as all the rest of the teams in the mmjhl closer to the start to this season, which that'll probably be coming out the Tuesday of the start of the regular season, which of course regular season kicks off this year in St. Vital, as well as a game in Stonewall on October the 2nd, as the starting off their regular season a bit later than usual. But hey, I think that's okay, as it only gives us more time to speculate, prepare, and get ready for what's going to be a very interesting, intriguing mmjhl season. We're going to send it to a commercial break. I'm going to be back for some final words here on this edition of the show. You're watching the mmjhl podcast on G Show Productions, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Movement, Fitness, and Performance, as well as Terrical. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. The classic. Forgot to unmute myself for a sec. Welcome back to the mmjhl podcast. If you made it to this point, thank you for doing so. This is about where we'll end things off for this week. Next week, going to be bringing you this show earlier on in the day, most likely noon, but have not decided yet when episode 3 of season 3 is going to be coming out. As for episode 2, season 3, I want to thank Tyler Moore for coming on and being the guest in this episode, the general manager and assistant coach for the St. Boniface Riels, one of their assistants at least. And yeah, a lot on his plate again this year, but I think Tyler enjoys it, and you gotta love that. And yeah, a great GM that St. Boniface was able to put in that position after Franco ended up leaving. But yeah, the Riels, can't wait to cover them this season, as well as all the rest of the 9 teams in the mmjhl. Hoping for more guests next week from different teams around the league. So yeah, all those details will be out before the start of next week's episode, and stay tuned on our website mmjhl.ca, as well as on our Instagram page at gshow _ productions, as we will end up having the details for you then. Just double checking my Instagram tagline, or not tagline, my Instagram account name, just to make sure I gave you the right one. But Reeve Sukit and his St. Boniface Riels, I don't know why I just mentioned Reeve Sukit, but yeah, congratulations to him on bringing home the gold with Team Canada once again. What I meant to say was a little brain fart here. Carter Rush Wilson. The fundraiser is in the description of this episode. I just ended up donating, believe it's just over 34,000 now. Be sure to donate if you can. Link is in the description of this episode for you to check it out. And like I've already mentioned, if you can't donate, if you're unable to spare any money, be sure to share it out to as many people as you can, friends, family, and anyone else you may be able to think of. Yeah, in terms of what's up next, we got a busy week ahead. We're going to be in Portage la Prairie from Friday to Sunday for the Central Plains Capital Showcase. Can't wait for that. Doubleheader of podcasting tomorrow, as we got the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast, as well as the Winnipeg High School Hockey League podcast coming out in Scholastics, and the Manitoba Female Hockey League podcast coming out as well on Thursday at some point. Haven't decided yet. All of those details can be found on our website at gshow.ca. Come tomorrow at the very latest, as we'll have details for all those 3 podcasts coming up. But for the meantime, mmjhl fans, I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, waving so long on this Tuesday night, giving you a peace out as well. Until 7 days from now, maybe seeing you a bit earlier. We'll catch you then. Take care.